And welcome to the Everyday Board Game Podcast with Daniel.
And Daniel,
And Daniel, welcome back. It's been a while.
it's been a minute, yeah. Let me tell you.
We took a couple months hiatus. We addressed it on the previous episode, which I don't think we've uploaded yet, so that's kind
No,
of pointless.
what I'm basically going to treat those as lost episodes,
Yeah,
and they'll get uploaded. I just right now we want to keep a consistent basis once we start recording and uploading, because that's the plan. Is we're going to start doing this once a week. You want to tell the viewers why?
yeah, sure. So I recently got a new job a couple months ago, which is why we went on a hiatus in the first place. And now I am going to be getting a newer job, technically, so a different position with a different company, and so we're going to be starting that. So the schedules are still kind of up in the air, but that's a much more specific schedule.
Work around. Let's
Yes.
just say that your job that you're leaving, you were working what 60, 70 hours a week.
Yeah, probably. Well, like
Because it was
50,
like 6 days
60.
a week, 10 hours a day sometimes. It
Yep.
was just really hard to plan. Of course,
Yep.
we both are married. You have kids,
Mm-hmm.
so it was hard to plan this in life plus
Right.
work. At
Yeah.
least with the new thing that you're going to be doing,
Right.
the hours are going to be a lot more stable.
They're going to be a lot more stable for sure. There's
Because
still
you'll
times
have your
where
set days off
we'll
and
have to.
such forth.
Right, yeah, and there's still, like, I'll definitely have weekends off. We'll probably be filming in evenings, depending on which evening we know. It's still up in the air. We will make announcements of it shortly, I'm sure. But as of right now, I actually have a day off for once, and I'm glad it was today of all days. I really
Especially
am.
because the episodes we are recording are Halloween special. So we are going to record
Yep,
two podcasts. Where right now we're doing the Chits and Giggles format, and a little bit later we will be doing the top 8 debate. Both of
exactly.
those are Halloween themed. You want to tell them the subject of today's Chits and Giggles?
Yes, today our Chits and Giggles is, as always, what are your Halloween go-to games? And what I mean by that is, if you're planning a game night on or around Halloween, what are the first games that you pick off the shelf going, yeah, these are the ones. These are the ones that I'm definitely playing. And yeah, I have some good ones. As always, I've picked three that I really think are the best to go off of, and then we have a few honorable mentions that we'll get into the reasons for that later.
Yeah, and I agree. I'm pretty much the same way. You're going to be surprised with my list.
Yeah.
You probably already know what my number one is. It's probably your number one as well. But
Um,
one of
I
my
doubt
go-to
that.
Halloween games got bumped off my Halloween game list and moved into my honorable mentions, and I'll explain why when we get to it. Spoiler
Yeah.
alert.
Weird. Okay. I'm curious about
But
that. I
other
I'm
than that, what
I'm
have you been
strongly
playing?
wanting you to guess any of mine. You're welcome to guess them while we're.
I know what one of them is. I don't know if it's going to be your number one,
I don't know
but
that
I
you
know
do.
what one of them is.
I really, well, maybe you probably do. Like I tend to tote this game quite often. It's
Yeah, I know what one of them is. I know kind of another one because you talk about it, even though it's not that great of a game. It's still fun to play in Halloween.
yeah. Okay. I think I know. I think you're on the right page. And I'll probably be able to guess yours as well. So, yeah, let's talk about what we've been playing lately. We've had some time off. Thank goodness. I've noticed one thing that's really been helpful lately is I want to give a shout out to BoardGameArena.com. If you don't have an account on BoardGameArena.com, go get one because it's one of those websites where you play games online with friends or just random people online. The difference between this and like the old like Yahoo games that used to be on the internet, that I'm showing my age now, is it's not like
Well, it's because you're old.
right. It's not like poker or checkers or like all the
Mm.
simple stuff. It has a lot of good stuff. It has Zolkin, it has Carcassonne, it has Lost Cities, it has all of these phenomenal games. Kalis.
And really, really good re-implementations of them too.
Mm-hmm.
My thing is, sometimes it's hard for me to get online to play board games because
Yeah.
I use board games as an escape from like digital format stuff like
Right.
that. And a lot of it too is nobody has the same schedule. You try to keep up with what you're doing, but usually my wife's new job gets her out at 4:30 in the afternoon, so I'm spending most of my afternoon with her rather than playing board games online with you.
Right. And that's understandable, yeah. And so like there's three main contenders as far as board game implementations online. There is Tabletop Simulator, which is kind of like the big daddy of it.
And
Um,
they have a tendency. They're more with the moving the pieces physically and stuff like
yeah,
that. They have that way. It kind of takes me out of it because
right.
it's very touchy.
Yeah, it's a good simulation. It works pretty well, but it's a physics
Yeah,
simulation as well.
physic. There's the word
And
I'm looking for.
yeah, it does a decent job, and it lets anybody put in whatever games for their community. But the thing is, the problem with that I have is that a lot of times people will upload games that they don't have the rights to upload, which is unfair for the publisher personally. Now, if the
Yeah,
publisher uploads it, then cool, let them do it because they can actually charge for it, and then you have a digital version of the game. Makes perfect sense.
yeah,
But
no,
then
exactly.
our second one is Tabletopia, which
Along the same lines as Tabletop Simulator,
yeah,
where it's more physic based than
yeah, and that I really have trouble with the controls on that one. I
yeah,
remember
very
I
much so.
tried playing chess with a friend of mine, and we dropped one of the pieces, and for the life of us, we couldn't figure out how to orient it back to an upright, like, where it's in real life you just take it and put it down. Now, the disadvantage with Board Game Arena is that it's not a physics generator. It's all Java based. So it doesn't look as good. You don't have clean animations, but the rules are all scripted. It's going to give you the options of what actions you can take or what you could do on your turn. Whereas the other ones, if you don't know how to play, you could just like throw cards across the table and it lets you do that. It doesn't teach you how to play the game. Where
No,
Board Game Arena is the solution to that, in my opinion. I have a premium account personally, uh, and I think it's worth it. I'm not saying you have to, but
no,
because of that, I've
I
played a lot
think
more
Board Game
games.
Arena is the best implementation, mind you, minus the Asmodee digital stuff that they go going on with like
True.
Carcassonne
Yeah.
and Scythe and all that. Those to me are the best
Yeah.
implementations. They work with app people to do it, but if you just want that board gamey feel and play it, Board Game Arena is the way to go.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I forgot about like the digital apps and all that stuff. I still play Onirim quite often.
Same.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about what we've been playing. I have played a few games with my family. I'm gonna go in order of most recent, honestly. This game up behind me, right here, Apollo, a game inspired by the NASA moon missions. I've played this once before, and then I just played it again with just my son, and I was worried at first because he wanted to play Mission Control, which is honestly kind of the boring part of the game. It,
Okay.
yeah, you just keep track of dials and tell people when things break, and that's effectively it. But he loved it. He was excited. We won. We
That's cool.
we did we did everything we needed to. We only did the Gemini mission. So there's Gemini and Apollo missions. Apollos are harder, but
Okay.
the previous time I played it, we didn't win, and that's
Oh.
yeah, yeah, and that was with our mutual friend Jim, and my son played it as well. But I was mission control, so maybe that's why is
Oh yeah, it's you. It's
yeah.
you.
But it's a
We've already
really
established your son's smarter than you.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But I mean, if you want, I'm impressed by Buffalo Games because Buffalo Games was never really known for their like quality games. I mean that sounds bad. Like they make decent components, but that thing is full to the brim of good pieces, amazing components. Like even the scenarios are in like the little like metallized plastic. You know what I'm talking about? Like it looks
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah,
an MRE. You know, it
yeah.
looks like
Yeah.
a space food, and you pull the cards out of that. You know, all of the components are phenomenal. The dice are good quality. It's a decent game. Yeah, I have a blast with it. It's definitely worth looking into. I think it's
Yeah,
on
and then the
sale
thing is,
right
you
now.
can find it at Target. That's what's
Mm-hmm.
interesting about that.
Well, that's because it's Buffalo Games, right?
Well,
They're
yeah, but
known
I
more
just
as a mass
you're
market.
finding these great games in box stores more
Yeah,
recently. We're going to be talking about one a little bit later,
yeah,
but
right. Oh yes, we will. Absolutely.
uh, but yeah. Other than that, so that was one of the games you played. One of the games I played. I've talked about it a lot of times, but I'm going to go ahead and say it once again because
Yep.
it's been a while.
Let's do it.
And this is probably my go-to rolling right, flipping right, whatever you want to call. It's Cartographers. They just recently had a Kickstarter which gave you Cartographer Heroes.
Uh huh.
Not only that, it gave you 3 new map packs to go with it. I went ahead and backed it for the deluxe box. This way I can put regular Cartographers, Heroes, and the 3 new map packs into one box.
Yep.
So, phenomenal game product. You know I'm a big Thunderworks fan. I love what they're doing. And the thing about it is, it's a fun flipping right. It's real thinky if you think about it, especially when you have to pass your sheet over. Like for me, I have to pass it to my wife when we're playing, and she screws me over like you wouldn't believe.
Right.
Uh, I like it because not only are we getting mad at each other, but we're also having fun. We're coloring. We're having a great time, and it's very good for social distancing. We Zoom call a couple friend of ours, and I've left them some pads last time I saw them.
Uh-huh.
This way, they just have them instead of having to print more stuff out. And yeah, it's a phenomenal game. We really enjoy it. It's like our go-to, like towards the end of the night. Uh, let's play a calm game after we're yelling at each other.
Right. Yeah.
Only till a monster come up and we start yelling at each other again.
Help!
But yeah, no, Cartographer is such an amazing game. I really love it. It's probably in my top 10 games now. As much as I played it.
Wow,
yeah,
really?
For a rolling right to get that high, it's in my top 10 games. It's and
Top 10 favorite or top 10 most played? Oh, okay. I was asking for that clarification. Top 10 most played or top 10 favorite?
Top 10 favorite. I really have a good time with it. I really enjoy it. It's great solo if you want to play it solo. It's great as a group.
Mm-hmm.
And it can hold as many people as you want, as long as you have pads for it or like a scoring sheet.
Sure.
And they have PDFs of them online on BGG, so you can just print out sheets.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. It looks fun. I mean, I want to play it again. I haven't played it in a long time, so.
Yeah.
I've also been playing another game with the family, one that we recently bought from our local comic shop, and one that is probably my wife's, or close to my wife's favorite version, or favorite game, and it's a new version of it. Nope, it is Splendor Marvel.
Oh, the Marvel one. Huh?
We played that last night, and so let's give a little bit of background just for our viewers real quick, is that I don't care about superheroes. There's your background. Zero care. Doesn't matter to me. I like Splendor.
You have quite a few superhero games.
That I don't have many. I have.
You have Thanos Rising. You now have Splendor.
Yep. No, that's hers officially.
Oh, that's hers.
In fact, when we were packing it up last night, she thought she controlled me, and she just dumped all the components into the box and then just slapped the box lid on top of it, and it wouldn't sit properly. I was like, "It's your game. I don't care," and I walked away. 2 hours later, she told me how mad she was that she was like, "I'm mad that you didn't fix Splendor." I'm like, "It's yours. You pack it however you want. It doesn't bother me." And it's still sitting out on that table the same way. But yeah, Splendor Marvel. How much do you like Splendor, Daniel?
I'm okay with it. I'll play it if people want to play it.
Okay.
For me personally, Century really killed it for me. I really have much more fun playing Century Spice World or Realm, which is the edition I own.
So let's talk about the differences between this and regular Splendor real quick. And I don't think it's enough to convince you, but you'd probably enjoy it over the other one. So it's the exact same game with a couple other conditions to it. There are these green chips that you need to get in order to win. Basically, the idea is it plays exactly like normal Splendor. You get all the characters by getting poker chips, which are Infinity Stones. Spend those to get the characters. Characters produce an Infinity Stone every turn that you can use to then buy more until eventually somebody reaches a certain threshold. Okay. In the regular game, it's 15 points. This one, it's 16 points. And on top of that, there are fewer bonus tiles, but there's also an Avengers Assemble bonus tile. And so certain characters have an Avengers symbol on it. The first player to get 3 of those gets a 3-point bonus tile for the Splendor. Okay. For that bonus. That's one difference. And then, as I was saying, there's green chips that you need to get. You also have to have a green chip to win. So it's not just 16 points. You have to have 16 points. Then you have to have a green chip, which you can only do by buying a level 3 card. And they all have those on it. So when you get the card, you get a poker chip. That's it. And then lastly, you have to have one character of every color.
Huh.
That's it. That's the only differences between those, as far as I can tell. There's no real bonuses. There are shield tokens, which act as your jokers that were in the original game. But, I mean, I enjoyed it because I like Splendor.
Yeah, it's
It,
Splendor. That's a
yeah,
game that needed superheroes on
yeah. I mean, right, exactly.
it.
It's like, I mean, I'm gonna put it down. It's one of my favorite games, but Star Wars Carcassonne, like, it didn't need combat. Like, it makes no sense. Dice rolling combat,
No,
it doesn't make sense, you know?
yeah, no, it's just kind of like how we always say, like, does the theme matter when we're going through our top 8 debate? This is just a painted on theme. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't match the mechanisms, kind
yeah.
of.
If it was
But,
already an established game and they added a mechanism on it that doesn't make sense, then it's questionable. Like, so we just recently bought Codename Simpsons, but Codenames is designed to where it can use those themes and it
yeah,
actually
yeah, yeah,
makes sense
because,
with the source material.
yeah,
Splendor Marvel,
yeah. No,
right? I don't know.
it's a little weird to me. When I heard it was announced, I was like, it's an April Fool's joke, right? I just missed it when it happened in April. What is
Yeah.
this?
No, it's a fine implementation. The cards are a little cheap though. They're cheaper than the original ones.
Okay.
I don't know why. They just feel thinner. They just weren't punched very well. Poker chips are fine. Everything else is good. Components are decent. Um, and it's Marvel. So if you are on the fence about getting Splendor and you really like Marvel, then just get that one. You don't need to own both of them.
Yeah, no, it sounds interesting. I'll try it, but like I said,
Sure.
Century really ruined Splendor for me. I was already on the fence with Splendor, especially with my wife. She
Mm-hmm.
didn't care much for it either.
Yeah.
And then I played Century, and I'm like, wow, I just love the way this works. The
Right.
cards, hey, you turn this in to get this, and this becomes this, and then oh look, I got some points. So yeah, it
Yep.
just
Yep, that's
phenomenal
all you
game.
need to know. Yeah, it's not going to convince you. I think you'd be willing to play it if like I brought it to a game night and like with all
Yeah,
the
no, I
superhero
would,
fans,
but
sure. But yeah, it's not going to win you over. I
it's
don't think.
along the same lines for me when it comes to like villainous. I have Disney. I really don't need to go out of my way for the Marvel one, even though
Right.
they did make some slight changes where like there's a group pool where you have to take care of stuff. All the fake cards are dealt together,
Oh,
and
okay.
this way you don't pick on someone. I guess you can say. But
So
the
that's why
couple
it's
friend I
not
talked about
compatible.
earlier,
Hmm.
they own that one while I have the Disney one, so it's just
Yeah.
kind of.
See, and I like the Disney source material way better. That's why I have that one.
No, I love the Disney source material. There's more to it than Marvel, basically, because it's just the Disney MCU stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, they've done what 21 films recently, and they got some more coming out. Where Disney, you have go all the way back to the 2030s to get
Yeah.
lore from. So,
Right. Exactly. You have a
so
bit
my next
more.
game that I've been playing recently is another one that I talk about a lot, and I'm not going to go over too much about it, but it's another one that does great over Zoom, and that's Just One. We've played the mess out of this. Again, we went one time, and I think we talked about it on the Lost episode. We went like 12, or no, 11 out of 13 we got right. But
Wow.
we haven't met that since. But we average about 8, so we do pretty well. We're trying to figure out how each of us thinks. So okay, don't want to go for the basic answer, so I'm going to go this way, and it just somehow works. And we've done really well with it, and it's great over Zoom. Like I said, it's a great family game over Zoom. You just need people with whiteboards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I want to play that one some more. I see. I just don't play on Zoom at all. I luckily have, a couple kids. One of them likes playing board games more than the other, but the wife will eventually play games with me from time to time. But I have at least
After you
one
break
player.
her down for a little bit, like come on,
Well, yeah.
eh.
We watched a movie last night together, and Adam's Family, and
The cartoon or the original?
oh the movie, yeah, the live action movie.
Well, they just the cartoon is a movie now too. The one that just
Oh
came out.
oh no, not the one that just
Yeah,
came out.
because it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh okay. If
Yeah,
it's as
but the
funny as
movie's just amazing. Raul Julia,
yeah. Yeah, it
Angelica Houston. They got some big names for a movie you didn't expect to get big names for.
right. Yeah, no, I like Adam's Family a lot, and so we sat down and watched that as a family. I got off work fairly early, so yay. And then after that, we're like, yeah, want to play games? Yeah, let's play some Splendor. The next one that I want to talk about that I played, and feel free to just stop me at any point because I can just go back.
Oh,
I'm only picking like
I
the
have. Let's
cream of the
see.
crop.
I have 4 more games to talk about, and then just a quick run through of what I bought recently.
Okay, so I played the alpha with my two kids.
Yeah, how is that one?
Holy cow, it's good. It's really fun. So it's very it's I don't want to say it's very random. There's a lot of chance in it,
But this is
but
the
it's understood.
bicycle, right?
It's
This
by
is the card
Bicycle.
company.
Yeah, the U.S. Playing Card Company owns Bicycle, which is their brand, and Bicycle Games, which now Will Wheaton is the head of like marketing for them. Um, the alpha is just through and through a board game. There are no cards in this game. What happens is you have a scoreboard in the middle of the track. You have the deep woods and you have like the nearby area. And essentially it's a worker placement with a prisoner's dilemma kind of attitude. So the idea is you're trying to get points. You get points by eating different animals. The bigger the animal, the more points they're potentially worth.
Yeah.
However, that might also add extra dangers involved with it. So the way it works is that you all have a pack of wolves. One is going to be on the scoreboard. You all have 5 food starting, and you place it on any one of the animals to go hunting for it. There's a few rules to that. Each of the animals show like what kind of die you roll and how much food it can potentially be. So like the deer might be worth 7, 7, 7, 8, and then nothing, right?
Okay.
So if I place my character there, I have a decent chance of getting at least 7 food. And then we continue placing the wolves down until the end of that stalking phase, as they call it, because we're stalking the animals. And then whoever has the most wolves on a particular animal will get the food. However, the food is determined by a die roll, and each animal has its own special die that you roll, and that determines how much food there was. So remember how I said that it was like 7, 7, 7, 8, and then nothing? That means that 2 of the sides of the dice are blank. And so if you roll that, the deer got away, and it doesn't matter that you had majority there. You just get nothing. And so they have different kinds of big animals. Well, the big animals, the biggest ones, the very, very biggest, which are I think in like 5 or 6 players, you have to have at least 5 wolves for them to trigger, even. Because you have to take them down in a pack. So if one person goes there, it's like, yeah, I'm going to get this buffalo, I'll show you, and nobody else goes there, they have to start sending all of their wolves to do it, which takes away from the other animals, which is interesting. Then you can forage, which is just you send one wolf there and it's just one food guaranteed. Eventually some of these animals might die, so you flip them to their dead side, and they're carrion. I don't know what the word is, but carrion?
Carrion.
Yeah, carrion. Yeah, and they're just a set value. No matter what, whoever has the most gets 5. And then there's another one, you can hunt for livestock, which is hilarious. Because livestock has 1 blank side, a 12, a 3, which is okay, and then 3-letter Ds. The D's, if you roll that, your wolf dies.
Yeah, because you're going after a farmer's animal.
Exactly. But if you get them at the right time, 12 food. My son rolled it 3 times in a row.
Well, it's because we've established your son's a better gamer than you.
He is. And the thing is, only one wolf could ever go for that, too. So as soon as somebody puts a wolf on it, done. Nobody else can go there. So now let's talk if people tie majorities, though. That's the only difference, is we all have a share and a steal. If we share...
Like Prisoner's Dilemma.
Yep, exactly. If everyone shares, then we split the food evenly, going in order from the first player. That's fine. But if one person steals, or one wolf steals, they get all the food. But if 2 or more steal...
The player who did it?
No, the ones who... If they cause a fight, and then those who got in the fight are put in an injured pile, and you lose those workers for a couple rounds.
Okay.
Or those wolves, and then they heal to the next turn. So you lose them for your next turn, basically, and whoever's remaining get the food. However, let's say everyone who had the majority pack gets injured because they all fought.
Yeah.
Then whoever did not have the majority next in line would then get the food because they now have the majority. Very simple game. It says it's a light strategy game on the box. That's very true, because the amounts are determined by a die roll, but everything else is not random. You are placing those wolves where you think makes sense. It was really fun. It was really good. I'm thoroughly impressed with it.
Pretty cool. Sounds good.
I'll bring it.
I do want to try it. I've heard really good things about it.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in playing it myself.
I'll bring it to our next game night for sure.
All right, sounds good. So, speaking of a small game, the next game on my list here is not so small.
Oh, goodness.
It's probably the largest game I've ever played. Not excluding...
You're going to make me sad talking about this. You know that, right? You're going to make me sad. The one time I couldn't join.
Twilight Imperium 4th edition. Finally got to play it. A buddy of ours bought a copy. We got together, played a 3-player version of it. Still took us 5 hours or so to play. Mind you, it was a learning game, so it's going to be a little fracas, especially since one of my big detractors from the game itself is just there's a lot to keep up with. You got your stuff that you're dealing with. You're seeing what your neighbors are doing. You're trying to get to Mechatol Rex. You're trying to make sure... And then there's a drafting mechanic where you're going to determine what moves you're going to be doing in the game. So in a 3-player game, you take 2 of those. So, and what the number is your turn order. So your lowest number is your turn order. So if, say, Bryce gets 1, I get 3, and Dom gets 5, that's our turn orders. Bryce is going to go first, then me, then Dom, and so forth. And so, but it's really cool. I like the way it works. And what I like about it is that because it's so big, they try to limit the downtime. And by doing that is when you're going into these player phases, as I said, when you're drafting these things. So say someone takes this one thing, and I don't remember exactly what they're called, but like leadership or something like that. He gets this action. That's his action to do. However, if you spend a strategy token or some of your stuff that you have on your board, there's a secondary objective that you're allowed to do. And so it keeps you involved when it's someone else's turn, because like, okay, you just did that. I've been saving these points for that reason, or I'm like, or do I want to spend this token that I have on here, or do I want to save it because I know Dom's secondary objective probably would do better for me.
Yeah.
And so I like that. It's a lot, it's long, but it's really fun. That 5 hours actually went pretty quickly. I didn't realize how fast it was. Like, I'm like, wow, it's already 5 o'clock. What the heck?
Yeah. You started at noon, right?
We started a little earlier, but it was more going through the rules and talking it out and setting it up, just trying to figure where everything's going to go and stuff like that. But we actually got the nitty-gritty and started playing about noon.
Okay, cool.
And then it took us about 5.5 hours. My biggest detractor, and it's a Fantasy Flight game, is that it's dice combat. So that's really where, as much strategy as you go throughout the game, you're beholden to the dice if you're going to win a fight or not.
Yeah.
But other than that, you kind of expect it when you're going with a Fantasy Flight style game.
Right. That makes sense.
I enjoyed it so much. My wife said, I can buy, here's some money, go ahead and buy some board games. I bought my own copy. You can barely see it on the screen, but it's right here.
Yeah. Yeah. I do plan on playing that with you at some point in the future.
I'm thinking maybe... I know we're planning game night in November, but I want to actually play more than just one game, because that's possibly what you're going to do with Twilight Imperium is play one game. But I'm thinking maybe like New Year's, I'll just have a game night where we just play Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I'd be up for that. That'd be really fun. Cool. My next game that I want to talk
Imperium
about...
4th edition, great game.
Yeah. Yeah, all 3 of you were telling me on how awesome it was, and thus making me sad. That whole day at work, I was just like, man, I want to be moving spaceships around and
building spaceships.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it comes with like 17 races in the box.
Yeah,
I can play completely different.
Wow. I just hope that you're able to get that to the table. You know, I mean, it's a big game, so I hope.
I see it as this such that even if I just play it once a year, it's worth the money, because it's such a grandiose. You're going to get about 5 hours worth of entertainment out of it. It's not going to hit all that often, but when it does, it'll be fun.
Yep, absolutely. So my next game that I played, I finally got off my shelf of shame, and that was one that I had bought when the pandemic started, or not when it started, but like when the lockdown started. They released a print and play version of it to try out. And I was very confused by the rules, and I was questioning it, but I love the theme of it. And that is Super Skill Pinball 4K. And
it's funny. before you get going.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw the shut up and sit down where they're talking about the roll and rights, and the guy
Yep.
was talking about this game, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to try that now.
It's really fun too. And so, well, I learned it from Dom, a mutual friend of ours,
Hmm.
who taught me how to play it. And him the rules still have questions. Because the thing is, the game is so big for a roll and write that a lot of
Yeah,
chaos could happen, and there's a
there's a lot
lot
of
of
moving parts in it.
there's a lot of moving parts. You have to keep track of which spot your pinball is in, which parts you've hit, which can move in different ways, and all of them have like special little abilities. So
Yeah.
we played like the main one, Carney Ball, and it was really fun. We enjoyed it. I I outlasted Dom by probably an entire round. Cause by the time his third ball dropped, I I barely lost my second.
So
So
what
I
you're
had an
saying is
entire round.
Dom's balls dropped.
Both of ours did, all three of them. Uh, but here's the thing though, he still beat me, and we got about 100 points give or take per round, and then the very last round where he was like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Let's see, and he was just watching me play like this last round. I still couldn't beat his high score. And so it was interesting. I actually liked it a lot. It's by Jeff Engelstein, and I haven't tried the other
What
three
I like
boards.
about it too is that if I remember correctly, the rule book or one of the books actually you can record your high scores and see
Yes.
who gets the high score. That's
Yep.
kind of neat.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So you can have a high scoreboard. Absolutely. Um, I'm probably not going to do that until I at least have played all four of the boards and understand them well, because I still have
Okay,
questions about the rules. But I had a blast playing it. It was really good.
cool, cool. So my next game on my list. Remember when I said my wife allowed me to have some money and buy some board games? This is
Mm-hmm.
one of them.
You've told me that
And
almost daily.
huh?
No, go on. Go on.
Oh, well, well, she ended up buying herself something. She just left her old job at the old hospital and started a new job at the new hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and is making way more money, which she's quite happy with. And she's like, for helping me along and you doing what you needed to do, here's some money. Go buy some board games. I'm like, you don't have to tell me twice. I bought some hats. I bought some board games. And so this is
Early
one of them that
Christmas.
huh?
Early Christmas.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, that's another thing. She's like, you can buy all these, but once November comes around, you can't buy anything because Christmas is coming around the corner,
Yep.
and I don't need you interfering with what I'm buying.
Right. Which makes sense. I need to enact that rule on myself pretty soon.
Oh no, she always implements. So every August, I'm not allowed to buy anything because my birthday, and every November to December, I'm not really allowed to buy anything. I can ask her like, hey, can I pick this up? Like, I'm going to be picking up the Wingspan expansion tomorrow.
Yeah.
If
Well, it's still October, so it's fine.
my audio listeners, this is a Tuesday before Halloween, and
Mm-hmm.
Wingspan's pre-order for Oceania expansion goes tomorrow on Wednesday. But back to where we were, the game I was about to talk about was Tekinyu, another of the Turksy, whatever. I
Yeah.
can't pronounce their names, anyways. Along the same lines as Zolkin and Teotihuacan. This one is Tekinyu. It's ancient Egyptian, deals with dice,
Mm-hmm.
more of a rondelle. It's quite interesting. It has a very interesting dice drafting mechanic in it. So depending on where the shadow is, some are really good for you, or some are in the white, some are in the taint, and some cannot be touched. And so the whole thing is to determine turn order. You want to get tainted dice as well as pure dice and keep a balance,
Okay.
because the further away you are from the dead on zero and perfect balance, the further away you get from first player. And so when you're going
Okay.
into the end of the round setup, so if I get a 6 dice that's tainted, I kind of want to get another 6 that's pure. And then there's different gods that wherever you draw the dice from, whatever the number is, you get an ability there, or you can use it for resources. However, you're only allowed so much resources, so anything you produce over that goes into your tainted pile because you're corrupt and you used all of that, you wasted. And so it's an interesting puzzle trying to figure that out while trying to get your points on the board and building and going all around. And the most beautiful piece in it is the obelisk,
Okay.
which is also the most annoying piece of it because it literally blocks the view of the other side of the board. So you're
Right.
kind of like, what dice are over there? What's going on? And then when you're trying to set it up, like when it rotates, some things become in the time because there's three. You got your light, you
Mm-hmm.
got your dark, and you got your twilight. So and the dice move as such. So during pure era, your yellow die and your white die are pure, but your black die cannot even be touched because it's in the sun. And your gray dice, which are always tainted, they go in the tainted roll. And your brown dice are tainted. And the twilight, your orange and browns are good. Your whites and blacks and grays and everything go in the tainted. There's no not touchables there.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your darkness, your whites and I think yellow or something like that are untouchable. Your grays are tainted, and your browns and blacks are pure. So it's you're trying to figure out how you're using the dice. The thing's rotating around. There's two scoring formats. You have the mid-game scoring and the final scoring, kind of like Teotihuacan.
Okay.
But it is there's a lot to go. There's not as much upkeep as Teotihuacan. Where like if I do this, this is this trigger.
Mm-hmm.
This is like I do this. Okay, your turn.
Okay.
Much easier on the upkeep. I played it solo, had a great time playing solo, thought I was going to lose, ended up winning by 1 point.
Ah, nice.
And had a really good time with it. It's a fun game. It's something that I need to play with more people. I honestly, just by the solo play alone, think I like this much more than Teotihuacan. I do enjoy Teotihuacan, you know that.
Yep.
I think this is just because of that dice drafting and less remembering of the upkeep makes it a better game.
That makes sense. Cool. All right, and I mean, we could keep going, but
I got two more games I need to talk about.
Then I will talk about another one then. The next one I played on Board Game Arena with my friends Jim and Tori, and I had seen this at Barnes and Noble before, and I had watched reviews on it, and they were all fairly negative. But one of my friends just said, "Okay, let's just try this one. Seems simple enough."
Uh-oh.
And we had a fun time with it. It's called Bandido.
Okay. Which one?
Bandido.
Oh, okay.
And the idea is very simple. You have a bandit who's trying to tunnel out of prison. Okay? Your job, he has a number of, it's just, they're domino-shaped cards. And your job is very simple. Block all of his exits. And so you have all of these cards that have really weird combinations. Like you might have two coming in from the side and one ending in on another, or like an L-shaped or like a J, really weird shaped tunnels.
Okay.
And essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to combine them, because if they ever loop back on themselves, then they're closed off because he can't escape. Or some of them have dead ends, which is just a picture of a guy with a flashlight, or it's just his hand in a flashlight. It's not even the person itself. So you're trying to get these to the point where you're closing off all of the paths possible, and lock him in. That's simple as it gets. It works really well. It's an interesting little puzzle. It gets more and more difficult the longer you play. So that's what we found. The first game that we played it 3 times. The first time, no problem. We each played a few cards, locked him in, we won. After that, we were confident, like, let's do that again, because that was fun. We lost miserably both other times. It was a really fun time. I highly encourage you try it. I was hesitant to buy any of the games from that company because they all looked kind of questionable, but they come in like the oink size box. They were about that big.
Yeah.
And most of them were pretty badly reviewed. And then that one, yeah, I played it. I'm actually impressed. I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't buy it because I considered it before. So yeah, that's Bandido.
All right, so the last two games like I was talking about that I want to talk about, one of them I'm just going to kind of touch on because I've talked about it before.
Okay.
I finally beat Arkham Horror LCG's campaign for the main box.
Nice.
So, love the game. Probably my go-to when it comes to Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror type stuff, just because it plays so quickly, and I can play it solo.
Yeah.
The one I wanted to talk about is one that I was looking forward to playing this year, and that is the newest Stonemaier game, Pendulum.
Oh, yeah?
I did play the solo play of this, and I don't hate it. I did enjoy playing it. I don't like it solo. Not every game needs to be fun solo. That was my issue with this one. It's got some neat mechanics and interesting concept to how it plays because you're doing the real time and certain things are happening and stuff
Sure.
like that. And honestly, trying to learn it solo is probably the worst possible way to learn this game because you're still trying to figure everything out. So that might have been the issue too. I do enjoy it. It's a nice little worker placement. It's got interesting concepts to it, but it's one of those games that I need to play with a group rather than solo because
Yeah.
trying to figure out what the Atoma is going to do as well as what you're trying to do while dealing with the because you can't play this on time when you're doing the Atoma. It's got to be the time mechanism with the sand timers, and it's fun. I enjoy it, and I'm like, okay, this actually wouldn't be that bad of a game with
Mm-hmm.
a group of people, and that's where I'm going to make my decision on it. Is when I finally play it with a group of people. I do like Stonemaier games. Right now, this is probably my least favorite that I play, or probably my least favorite out of all the ones I played. Doesn't mean I hate it, but it's
Right.
just I need more information before I make a decision on it. I did have fun
That's
playing
fair.
it.
That's
So
that's one of the first Stonemaier games that I'm genuinely excited to try.
yeah, no, like I said, the concepts are interesting, and at least if we're learning the game with like you, me, Dom, Bryce, all of us are playing it, we can at least stop the timers and do like the first round where you just go through the untimed round. This way you can learn how each moving piece on the board plays, and then afterwards you can start picking up how to do it with the timers and the second and third round and stuff like that. So.
Very cool. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Laura Snow White. Thank you for following us. Appreciate that.
All
Yeah,
right.
my last game that I'm going to be talking about was one that I don't own, but our friend Dom showed me how to play it. It's called The Search for Planet X by Renegade Games.
Okay.
And that game it's a deduction game, 100% pure deduction. It does require an app that gives you information. You could use one person's phone and pass it around, but because of obvious reason, we didn't. We each downloaded the app and we played it, and it was
Smart choice.
Yeah, and so basically, each one of the 12 sections of the night sky have either an asteroid, empty space, planet X, which seems like empty space, which I'll explain that a little bit more in a bit. Comets or asteroids, I believe, or comets, and then there's asteroids separately, and dwarf planets. And so you're trying to figure out where everything is, and they all have a few different rules that they go off of. For example, comets, there's I think only 5 spots that they can be, so you can already deduce that, say, a comet could never be in section 9, which I might be wrong on that, but like because it's just not possible for it to be there. Whereas like an asteroid, for the asteroid belt, there's going to be at least 2 next to each other, at least.
Okay.
And so there's 4 of them total. And so if there's 2 here, then there's 2 somewhere else separately, or they're all combined. Dwarf planets have like certain rules, like they will never be next to planet X, I think. So if there's like an empty space token, or if you know that one of them's empty space and the next one's a dwarf planet, then you know it's definitely not planet X because it can't be. And so you're using these rules, and you're giving a little bit more information by researching, using just scanning the area for different things. You can scan for different types, and the bigger the span, the less information you get, but also the less time it takes too. And so it uses this time mechanism where you're kind of like leapfrogging over each other using a certain number of time units, and depending on what action you take, it takes like I think 1 to 5 time units, and then whoever figures out where it is pretty much first effectively more or less has the win, but not necessarily, because determining where everything is, that gives you different amounts of points. I liked it. I love deduction, honestly. Social deduction is one thing, but pure deduction I absolutely really like. And so
Sounds interesting.
yeah,
It really does.
if you liked Clue, then this is definitely worth trying. And I love that theme.
Clue is
Planet
one of the
X.
better childhood games I played.
Yeah, exactly. Because other than the roll and move part of it, it really is one of the best games.
It really is. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about before we get going, it's not even a game. It's stuff that I need to play because I just bought them.
Right.
And these are the list of games that I had just recently bought that I could remember. I that's saying something. Of course, I talked about it. Twilight Imperium 4. I went ahead and bought. That was I was like, I played it, enjoyed it. I had to buy it.
Yeah.
It's just that kind of game. But I also picked up Zolkin, so I have another of the T series game that everyone talks about. There was a nice little sale by Stonemaier, and I went and picked up Euphoria, so I only need 2 more games of his to have the entire Stonemaier collection. I picked up the first expansion to the Arkham Horror LCG, which is the Dunwich Legacy, and
Okay.
then I got sad because I bought it. Because you only get half the story of that campaign in it. Then you have to buy the individual Mythos packs, which are sold out, to finish it. And that's when I realized, I guess I'm not putting any more money into Arkham Horror, because, yeah, I'm like 3 levels behind, and I can't pick up the rest of the second campaign.
Right. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It bothers me, but whatever. I had a credit on Game Nerds, so I went ahead and bought Fallout, the board game.
Oh, cool.
I know there's been some issues with it. People have problems with it. I
I
want to
like
give it a
it.
shot.
I like it, and I don't even like Fallout. I genuinely
And
think
I
that's a fun
also
game.
picked up, because of that thing, and I had to make it to where it's $75 so I can get the free shipping. Went ahead and picked up Fallout Shelter, the board game.
There you go. That one looks
And
cool.
an expansion to Teotihuacan.
Very fun. I just picked up a game that I want to share with you guys. It's technically 3 games. It's kind of making me hungry. Here's one of them, which
Oh,
looks.
yeah. You showed us that picture. Oh, my God.
I had to buy this because it looks just like, as a person who eats a lot of macaroni and cheese, let me tell you, it looks spot on until you look right on the bottom and it says original mac and cheese game. And then look at the contents.
I can barely read what
Yep.
it says.
Yep, it says 54 cards, 250
And
noodles.
it looks like you're mirrored on the thing,
Probably,
so people
yeah.
are going to be able to read it.
And then right here on this box, on this part where it normally show like the ingredients or cook time or whatever, it's the gameplay stuff.
The player count and stuff like that.
And it came in a 3-pack of games. There's the macaroni and cheese one. There's ketchup.
Dice game, right?
This is a dice game. And then there's Jello.
Only
Jiggler
you
slap.
would buy that and waste money on it.
I mean, so I read the rules for them. I haven't played any of them yet. Jello needs 4 to 6 players. The ketchup one is 2+ players, and then the macaroni and cheese one is 3 to 6. So the only one I could play with just my son would be the ketchup one. But
so, out of all those 3 foods that you just showed, can you tell which one I don't like?
Jello.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm assuming you just cringe at the idea of Jello because you know how it's made.
I don't mind Jello. I just don't like the texture of Jello unless there's actual fruit in Jello.
Oh, sure. Okay.
That's why I don't eat flan, and that's why I hate tofu.
Oh, see, I love flan, but I wouldn't eat tofu because that's gross. So yeah, the idea, I guess, like this one is kind of like, it's supposed to be like a ladder climbing game, except you roll a pair of dice, and then everybody goes in playing the cards of the dice total rolled. So like if you roll a 6, anybody who can play a 6 plays a 6, and then you ante every round. Whoever stays in longest gets the ante. That's the game. Then the ketchup one, it's a dice game that's kind of like a mix between Farkle and Yahtzee. You're trying to get ketchup logos, not the other
that doesn't sound like a good combination. Yahtzee's
well,
a fine game, but Farkle?
I like Farkle. Farkle's great. It's supposed to be a push your luck game where you roll all 5 dice. You try and get points for every ketchup label you roll. But if you ever don't roll ketchup labels, then you bust and you don't get points for that round. But the thing is, you have to roll all 5 dice every one of the 3 turns and add up your total points amongst those 3 turns. So it is not so much diminishing returns. And then this one is more of a dexterity game where one person says either left or right or jiggle, and they say what flavor of Jello, and you have to slap the correct like color shape thing. And if you do it first, then you get the card. And but if you slap the color of Jello and you already have it, then you lose that card. So your goal is to get one of each color. So it's okay.
So what you're describing to me is a whole lot of bad.
I had my hopes up because it was Big G Creative, right? And they partnered with their very first 4 games that they made as Big G Creative was like Wizards Always Win, How to Be a Spy, Bob Ross, and there was one other, Shifty Eyed
Yeah,
Spies,
those were all with
or
Prospero,
How
right?
to Rob a Bank. Yeah, and those were all with Prospero Hall. So I was hoping, even though that these weren't Prospero Hall, it's
That it
still
might still be good.
they might still be decent. But all three of the games were made by a designer named Peggy Brown, and she made like Buzzwords, and she has like 60 games to her list. And she seems fairly prolific, but they're more like party games, kids games, stuff like that.
Hmm.
I'm still gonna give them a try, but I had to buy them because those are like three of my favorite foods, and it's just funny that it's just in a little pack of three games. They might not be terrible, but I oh, and the back of the box for the macaroni is the level of how many you ante, how many noodle tokens you ante every turn. It's silly.
Alrighty, let's we've delayed this long enough. Let's
All
go
right,
ahead and start up on our Chits and Giggle topic.
you got it.
What are your go-to Halloween games? As always, we start with our Facebook post on the Board Game Revolution community.
Okay.
If you want to be a part of it, this is where you go.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, we asked very simple. What are your go-to Halloween games since Halloween is coming up, and I will give some backstory into mine. But Peter, a friend of mine, says realized that I didn't have any Halloween or horror games in my collection, despite a long history of designing haunted houses and a general love of the events. Picked up Horrified because of the classic horror monsters. Good
My
choice.
kind of man, right there.
Right there. Yep, he knows.
All right, so Adam added that he plays Lobotomy, which is something I'd never even heard of. Mysterium, Horrified, and Dead of Winter.
Okay, wow, that's completely out of order with mine. Um, I don't know why mine are completely out of order, but Bryce
I
said,
put mine under all comments, and that puts them in
okay,
comment order.
well, mine should be. Anyway, yeah, Bryce said, I like to play this particular trio of Cthulhu games: Witch of Salem, Pandemic Reign of Cthulhu, and Kingsport Festival. After we inevitably lose the first two cooperative games, we need the third one, so at least someone can revel in a victory. That's good. I've played the Cthulhu version of Pandemic. It's one of the few I don't own, but I actually really did enjoy it.
I haven't played any three of those actually.
No, that's fair.
So the next one on my list here is John, and he says I've only got Horrified and Arkham Horror, the card game, and he's guessing he needs to branch out.
Only if you want to. I mean,
Yeah.
it's also something to point out that up until the past few years,
There
horror
haven't
games,
really been any good Halloween games.
yeah, horror games and Halloween games, like ones that you would bring out, were either mass market or Arkham. So
Or Betrayal, because that's old enough now.
yeah,
Betrayal on the
that's
House on
true.
the Hill.
Yeah, which leads me to David's comment: Betrayal at House on the Hill, Witch's Brew, and Mysterium. Additional include Ghost Blitz, Zombie Dice, Scary Tales, Broom Service, Ghostel, Hugo, and others in
Hostel.
my collection. Hostel? Gostel?
Because
Gostel?
it's Hostile and Ghost mixed.
Oh,
Gostel.
okay. So Gostel.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, wow, yours is really out of order. So, my next one
No,
on
I don't
here
know.
is Jolene, and she says Betrayal at the House on the Hill, Horrified, Elder Signs, and Hocus Pocus, which is relatively new, and I need to try.
Yep. Yeah, I just picked it up. So here's hoping that I can get it before Halloween, or at least the day of. Jeff says...
How's it going, T. Clark?
Oh, hey, we have comments. Very cool. Jeff says, spot it, Halloween. I teach Japanese children. It's about all they could handle. That's fair.
Fair enough. Ken says A Touch of Evil.
Touch of Evil. Very cool. So Adams. And is that everything? Oh, Billy says,
Billy, last
mine
one.
is the Arkham Horror LCG and Mansions of Madness. As we were talking about, yeah. So, and of course, T. Clark, thank you for tuning in and joining us. If you have any of go-to Halloween games, feel free to comment them, and we'll discuss them as well. So, as with all of our Chits and Giggles episodes, we tend to make a list of our top 3 go-to, depending on what the discussion topic is. But we always tend to have a few extras lying around.
Yeah, honorable mentions that people might want to look at, but they
Yep.
don't really feel perfect to the topic.
Yeah, or that we couldn't put them in for one reason or another, which we'll explain. So you probably have more horror games than I do, in all
Let's see
honesty.
here. I got 1, I got 2, I got 3, I got 4, and 5.
Okay. That's how many you own?
Actually, I own all 6 of my picks on here.
Okay. I mean, I own quite a few as well. But I don't know that you're going to be able to guess any of them. I do have 3 honorable mentions. Uh, but and only one of them is I have on my honorable mentions list because I haven't played it yet. And that's Evil Dead 2, the board game. I'm really excited to play it. It's every year I try to watch Evil Dead or Army of Darkness or something. I just showed my father-in-law Evil Dead 2 a couple days ago for the first time, and they seem to like it. And now they are excited to watch Army of Darkness, which is the third in the series. So
I do like the fact that Evil Dead went away from being trying to be true horror, and Evil Dead 2 is when they start getting like the super campiness,
yeah,
as well as Army of Darkness and so forth.
yeah. The Evil Dead 2 transitions from at first it's trying to be a psychological thriller, and then by the end of the movie it's just completely over the top. I love
Yeah.
it. I love that movie. And then
So before we get going into our honorable mentions, T. Clark says he only just started getting into board games last year. So right now, his only go-to Halloween game is Horrified. But he feels like chances are pretty good that Bloodborne will become a go-to Halloween. Just not this year because it's not supposed to arrive to backers till December. But yeah,
yeah,
I can understand that.
yep. I mean, I just recently bought Bloodborne the card game. I still haven't played it, but I'm curious to try it. So yeah, let's talk about what's your next honorable mention, Daniel?
You haven't even mentioned your first one.
Yeah, Evil Dead 2, the board game.
Oh, is it Evil Dead? I forgot it was a board game. I thought
Yep,
we were talking movies for some reason.
because it's based on the movie. Yeah, I mean, I give
No,
Jasco
I
Games credit.
legitimately forgot that it was a board game.
It's okay. I haven't played it, so I technically did too. Go on.
So my first honorable mention is kind of a cheap pick. It can work for Halloween, and it's one of the more recent games that I added to my collection. But I've played it beforehand, and that is Unmatched,
Okay.
the card-driven game from Restoration Games. I think this is why it's an honorable mention. It doesn't really fill the Halloween need unless you get specifically the Cobble and Fog expansion.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that one is because you have the Invisible Man, you have Dracula, you have Jekyll and Hyde, and then of course you got Sherlock in there, so you can pretend you're Sherlock and Watson. But
Yeah.
what I like about it is the decks and the abilities feel really thematic to the characters. They really work well. But then you have the small ones where you get to play Bigfoot too. So you basically are taking on a role. It's not truly a Halloween game,
Right.
but it works in this sense, and that's why it's really in my honorable mentions. Is because it's a fun little deck building game, or not deck building, deck playing game, with a little bit of shuffle luck, basically. So you're hoping your good cards are a nice mix rather than all the way at the bottom.
Right.
But there is some luck to it. I love the deck abilities and the thematic, like I said, to the characters, and like I said, the most recent expansion, Cobble and Fog. That's what really took it over the moon for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. My second honorable mention is a tiny box game from Yellow Games, and that is called Candy Chasers. It's not Halloween themed, but it is candy themed, and therefore it counts.
Which works.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, no, this game has 5 little different candy color cubes that you're moving along a track, and it's a very simple one. Everybody has a secret candy that they're going for, and then as you roll a die, I believe, and it has anywhere from like -2 to +3, and you move one of the candies that number of spaces, because once a certain candy goes above a certain spot, that triggers the end of the game, and whoever had the highest valued candy wins the game. But it's a bluffing game because, like, let's say I get the blue candy, right?
Yeah.
Of course I'm going to want to move my blue, but if you see that, you can move it back. There's nothing stopping you from moving that one back. So you have to be decisive on when you move the pieces over, when you think you're bluffing the opponents. It's very simple, but it works really well.
You know what it kind of reminds me of?
What does it kind of remind you of?
Museum Caper.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that, except it's just like a track instead of like
Yeah.
actually moving to the pieces. But yes, you're totally right on that. It's a very similar game. So if you like, I know you liked Museum Caper quite a bit.
Surprisingly, I actually really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, yeah, you might like Candy Chaser too. It's a super small box, works really well.
And before we move on to my next selection, why don't you go ahead and read what T. Clark says?
Yeah, T. Clark says, "Oh yeah, another Kickstarter game that I'm excited or expecting to arrive in the not too distant future is the Night Cage. That might be the go-to Halloween game too." You know, I couldn't agree more. I didn't even think of the Night Cage, but on the very last day that you could late pledge,
Uh,
2 hours before they locked it down, I went and got the advanced version with the acrylic tiles.
nice.
I love Kurt. He's awesome. He's one of my favorite people in the industry, and I'm glad I could support him. But that game looks really fun too.
It does look really good. I wish I could have got onto it, but there was just a lot going. If they kept it at its original date, and I understood why they had to move it for
Mm-hmm.
reasons,
Yep.
I would have been able to back it.
Well,
But
you and
because it
me
got
stopped
moved,
backing it at the same time too
yeah,
because of those Stefan Feld games. Which
yeah.
darn it, Queen games, stop taking
And
my
they got another one
money.
tomorrow.
I know, and now a new one comes up tomorrow. We'll talk about that later. But darn
Yeah.
it, Queen
So,
games.
so my next honorable mention here is one that was a go-to Halloween game, but it's one that just doesn't hit the table all that much more because it can take forever, especially when you got some of these other games out there
Mm-hmm.
that just tend to go quicker. And I'm getting older, my wife's getting older. I don't have the big grandiose board gaming group that I used to.
Right.
And this one is Eldritch Horror.
Yep.
I really do enjoy the game. I think it's a phenomenal game to play. There are some flaws. There's no lying that. And one of the biggest flaws is that it's very long and it has a little bit too much luck.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's Fantasy Flight. We talked about this earlier. It's dice combat, and so you're beholden to the luck of the dice combat. You got to get a 5 or a 6 to succeed on anything, really, and to top it all off. If you get Cursed Card in some of the expansions, it's a 6 only. If you don't, if you get a Blessed Card, it's 4, 5, and 6, which makes it a little bit better. But again, it's a dice roll. So
Yeah.
it's based off Lovecraft lore, which is a great lore, even though it's written by a horrible, horrible person.
Yeah. Well,
Horrible person.
we'll get into that more later.
And the reason why I think it's a great Halloween game is because it's got those epic big bads. You got Cthulhu, the more famous one. You have the Man in Yellow. Some of the names I can't pronounce or don't want to pronounce because they just don't sound right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but it does have some really good big bad guys that you feel that tension going along the lines. But my big thing is it's just too long. I get to play 2-3 other games on my list in the time it takes to play Eldritch Horror.
Right. That makes sense. And you know what? My other honorable mention was always kind of the game that I'd bring to Halloween, even though it wasn't necessarily horror Halloween themed. And that's my personal favorite of the Arkham Horror series, and that's Elder Sign.
Hey, guess what? That's also my number one honorable mention.
Is it really?
Yes.
Then let's talk about it. Because, yeah, Elder Sign, it's a really good, just simple game. It
Dice
plays
game,
quick.
yeah.
It's a dice game that uses a very neat push your luck mechanism. You can assign 1 die per turn, re-roll the rest. As long as you don't completely roll something unassignable, then you don't bust. It's really good. I enjoy it. I just 3D printed a couple pieces for it, which they look phenomenal. I would get it, but they're super loud. But they're basically like a tome that's opened up, and you put your character's shit in the top part of it, and you can lock the die on the bottom half of it.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it has like a pyramid with the all-seeing eye on it. Like it looks beautiful. I printed out 8 of those, so that way we have enough for all the characters. Yeah, I'm excited to get that back to the table this year.
Yeah, and for me, the reason why I put it on there above Eldritch Horror is because, one, it plays quicker. You can get it done in less than an hour than compared to Eldritch Horror.
Yep.
They almost hold the same amount of number. I think it's 1 to 8 on Elder Sign, and I think it's 1 to 6 or 7 on Eldritch Horror.
Yep.
So, yeah, another reason it's on here is the familiarity of the mechanisms. People play Yahtzee, you basically describe it. You're just doing kind of Yahtzee stuff. You're matching symbols, and you're trying to get certain things to defeat certain things. You get 3 rerolls, real simple. And it's easier to teach, much easier to teach than Eldritch Horror because you got this going on over there, this going on over there, that going on over there. But this one is just you roll these dice, you match these symbols. That's all you got to do.
Yep, exactly.
Bad things will happen eventually, but we'll get to that when we have to.
Yeah, and the fact that it's a co-op dice push your luck game is always fun.
Yeah,
That
and that's
works really
phenomenal.
well.
And I love the app. It was one of the first games that ever got an app to it, and I
Mm-hmm.
really do enjoy the app integration. Playing it on your phone when you got to go to the airport or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Cool. And then T. Clark, 1981, said he went all in on the Night Cage, just like I have with all the board games I've backed, with the exception of Massive Darkness 2. That's fair. That was a massive, like, all in
Yeah, it
back.
was. Yeah, it wasn't just massive
Yeah,
darkness. It was a massive, massive darkness.
right. And then he said he eventually wants to get his hands on a copy of Nemesis and the expansions. That would make a solid Halloween game too. Which, T. Clark, I really hope you stick around for our next episode that we film, because we're going to be debating Nemesis as one of them.
Yep.
All right.
No, and I actually have everything randomized for that too.
Yeah, that'll be fun. I can't wait. So let's get
All
into
right.
our actual mentions then. Uh,
Yep.
I'll go ahead and start.
Go
And
ahead.
my number three, the third best go-to game for Halloween, is one where you are playing as different kinds of monsters and you're wearing costumes. It is a social deduction game, technically. It's really more of a deduction game. You're trying to complete a hidden objective based on which character you are, but you can do things like manipulate cards, get or trigger other people to reveal their identity, and it works really well. That's Grim Masquerade by Druid City Games. I like Grim Forest. Grim Masquerade, it was
Oh,
what sold me
that's
on it.
the where you're like you're trying to figure out what other people are.
Yes, based on
I think we
what
played that with my wife, right?
I think so. Yeah, and you.
Okay, yeah.
So, like, for example, if you are Hansel and Gretel,
Beast, you don't. Yeah, you don't want this.
yeah,
You
you
want this instead.
right.
Yeah,
You
okay, yeah,
don't
I
want the
remember. Yep.
mirrors, where like another character would want the mirrors. You know.
Totally forgot about that game. So good choice.
Yeah. No, I had forgotten about it. It actually kicked one off while we were discussing, because I looked up and I saw it on my shelf. I'm like, and then so viewers might have noticed me kind of go like this and mark it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Originally, it was Nightmare on Elm Street from back in the '80s. Not a very good
Oh
game,
yeah,
but really fun. Where you're traveling a maze, and then but Freddy, he's actually able to maneuver around kind of randomly, but he can go through maze walls trying to capture you. It's super fun.
Before we get into my next pick or my first pick, T. Clark says now that he thinks about it, several of the games that he's backed could make good Halloween games. Because I also backed Machina Arcana
Hmm.
in what is that?
Hell,
Hell of the Last Saga.
yeah, it's by Mythic Games.
Yeah, no, I know which one. It's just my second screen's a little further away than I would like it to be.
Gotcha. No worries. Good, yeah, good picks. I can see, T. Clark, that you are a big Kickstarter person. We'll be talking here more about that too. Well done.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. So my first pick,
All right.
I actually just talked about it. It's something I've just played, and the reason why it's in my number 3 is because I really, really enjoy this playing solo,
Okay.
and that's Arkham Horror, the living
Living
card
card
game.
game. Yep.
I mean, I had my issues about Dunwich and whatnot, but if you have the games, it's perfect for you if you want to
Yep.
play solo. It gives you that Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror feel because you got all the big bads coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Perfectly good played solo game, easy setup and cleanup, and it's quick. I can get a game in like 45 minutes, if that. So
Very cool.
I don't want to harp too much on it. I think it's a phenomenal game if you got in on it early enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so you have a very fair reason why you're perturbed about it, but it's not. It's not a fault of the game. It's a fault of the system that makes
It's,
it,
it's
right?
not just the system, it's the fault of the company. If you're going to make this where it's a living card game, you should at least try to keep each legacy cycle in stock for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
This way, you're still selling the base game, and people are going to want to play more that base game. They're going to pick up the base game first and play it because you need to have the base game before you can play any of the expansions.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to support any of the expansions, or just give us a big
Yep.
box expansion, make it the same price as the base game, and put everything in the big box.
Yeah. Yep. Couldn't agree more.
That's my issue with it. Is I understand it's a living card game. That's fine. Keep releasing expansions.
Yeah.
That's not a problem. Or do what you're doing with the Marvel's Champion games, where you're getting like the solo scenarios out there and stuff like that, or the solo characters that you can pick up. But don't make it hurt where if I haven't gotten into this game, and it came out in 2016, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
First expansion came out in 2017. Well, the Dunwich Legacy was the first box expansion. It only gave me half the campaign. The other campaigns are solo packs that are hard to find right now.
Yep.
And you're hurting your sales on that factor. Yeah, you get it in the beginning, but people who are getting into the game, they can't finish the game.
Yeah. But Daniel, tell us how you really feel.
But the game itself, I love. I think it's a phenomenal game. It plays really well. I love you can use your cards for checks, but then they have to be discarded. You can use your cards for their skills. You can use the weapons, however you want to fight. I use the app, so I don't even use the token bag anymore.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal game. I do enjoy it. I'm just annoyed by the way it's set up.
Yeah, that's understandable. Would you ever play this as a 2-player game? Because I know it's...
I have played it as a 2-player game. It's fine as a 2-player game. I would not play it as a 3 or 4-player game.
Do you prefer solo?
I prefer it solo. It's much simpler because I control 2 characters. I know what I'm planning. And there's not much downtime because I go from this character to this character. It's simple.
Yeah.
If I'm playing 2 players, I got my character, then I got let someone else do their turn, and then it comes back to me, which is fine. It's fast. If I'm doing it with 3 or 4 and I have to wait 2 turns, I get disengaged. That's how quick this game can be. You get disengaged.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, I'm going to give you a chance to guess my second one. I'm going to give you a series of hints. Ready?
Okay.
The first one, this is absolutely Halloween themed. That's the first hint.
Ghosts Love Candy?
Well, that didn't take long. So Ghosts Love Candy is my number 2. Well done. Yeah, it's 100% Halloween themed because you are ghosts haunting kids who are trick-or-treating. You want them to... You're trying to steal their candy because each candies are worth different amounts of points for each character. And anytime you haunt a character, or one of the kids, you get their special ability based on the costume that they're wearing. It's so good. Like if someone's dressed as Robin Hood, you take from the kid who has the most candy and put it on the kid who has the least candy. Like it makes sense. I love it. I love the chaos, and it's a really solid game where everybody bids.
It's good for families too. That's the thing.
It's a wonderful game for families.
Play with kids.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's a wonderful game. Great art. Super silly art. Genuinely fun game. Very inexpensive. I mean, I'm surprised we still have some at the shop. I think I might be wrong. We might not have any more, but Steve Jackson doesn't seem to be supporting it much anymore. But man, that hits the table every year. It's so good.
Yeah, no, I haven't played it myself. I've seen it played because usually you'll have a group when I show up playing it, and it looks good, but just haven't really got into it.
So wait, you haven't played it yet?
Nope.
Oh, that's gonna climb your list for Halloween games. I need to fix this because that's
I'll
awesome.
look into it. I just never got a chance. Like I said, it's always being played when I show up to something or another.
Yeah. Cool.
So you want to guess what my number 2 game is?
I think I know what number 1 is, but maybe let's go over a series of hints. But I'm gonna guess The Shining first.
No.
Okay.
And my first one would have been that it was a book, so that would have thrown you off. But no, I do like The Shining. I just think The Shining is a bit too simple for a Halloween game in a sense.
Sure.
You're not really getting that tension that you would get if it was like the other Shining game that just recently come out. I forget who made it, but there seems to be more tension filled than say the Prospero Hall version.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a very tension-filled game, for sure.
It is a book.
I mean, it's not Dresden Files. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head that's a book, right?
No. Yeah, well, yeah, you're right.
Then that...
Let me rephrase that. It's a sequel to a book. It's a very old book. At least over 100 years.
Why would the Bible be based on a Halloween... hold on. No, I don't know.
Well, you see...
No, I have no idea.
And it's worker placement. That's your last clue.
Worker placement based on a book over 100 years old? I mean, that puts it in the 1920s at least.
Oh, it's way before the 1920s. Think 1880s.
I don't know. I don't know. I ain't gonna get it.
And my last clue for you, I guess,
Oh,
I'll
it's
give
probably
you.
something Arkham Horror then.
No, it's going to be the company which is Plaid Hat Games.
Dead of Winter?
Abomination, heir to Frankenstein.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Go on.
The reason why I
How did I
say
not
it's a
get that?
sequel to a book is because it's taking place after the book Frankenstein
Yeah.
finishes. That's why it's called Heir to Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody who's read the book, spoiler alert, it's nowhere near what the movies have portrayed. Frankenstein's monster was just trying to get a companion built and stuff happened. That's what this is about. Frankenstein has basically bribed and or forced or even paid people off to build him a companion because he's lonely. And that's what this is about.
Yeah.
It's a worker placement game where you're trying to get body parts to build your own Frankenstein monsters. I really enjoy it. I love the darkness of the game. I love the lore of the game because I've read the book. I've enjoyed the book. I know some people's problems with it, you, of course, being one of them, is that it is a bit lucky. It's based on dice roll, trying to animate your monster. That's where you're going to get a lot of your points. So there is that issue. But it feels very thematic, and it works, especially around the Halloween time frame. You get that spookiness. You get that creepiness. You're like, I'm going to the graveyard because I'm going to dig up some body parts. I'm going to go to the morgue and pay off some guy to pick up some body parts. Or you could just be corrupt and decide, you know what, I'm just going to go over here and kill someone and get some really fresh body parts.
Yeah, which is terrible.
But it's not made for kids. I'm not going to lie about that one. But I have a good time every time I play it. It's one of my favorite Halloween games for that reason. It does give you that spookiness. It does give you that tension that you want. Like, do I need those fresh parts. Do I kill someone?
Right.
Or do I just go over here to the morgue where they're going to be a little fresher? Then certain things happen where you can't go to the hospital or you can't go to the morgue.
Right.
I really enjoy it.
Okay, cool. I'm glad you do. Well, that's what gaming's about. As long as you're having fun, who cares? My number one, you already referenced it a little bit, and you're smirking. I think you know what it is. You have one guess. Go for it.
Horrified.
No.
Really? Oh, forgot. It's the one I forgot to mention is Nightmare.
Nightmare. Yes. Okay. I was about to say, sir. I like
Which
Horrified.
Which is shocking that you don't have Horrified on your list.
Nope. Didn't even make the honorable mentions because Horrified is a great horror themed board game. I don't think it adds any more to it being at Halloween. Like that's just me.
Oh no,
but
it's
Nightmare.
A Halloween game. I'll talk about it in a little bit.
Oh, I know.
Spoiler alert! It's my number one.
Yep. Oh, I know. I'm surprised Dead of Winter wasn't on your list. That's really surprising to me.
Dead of Winter has really fallen off my list. I do like it. I still enjoy the game, but all 6 games that I've talked about, I'd probably play ahead of Dead of Winter.
Yeah. I haven't played my Dead of Winter in forever too.
And a lot of the times too is that all the games here I've talked about, other than Abomination, can play solo unmatched as well.
No,
I think
true.
Dead of Winter was actually sitting at my number 6, and then I saw it unmatched on my shelf, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'd rather play unmatched. And the same reason for some of the other things like Eldritch Horror.
Sure.
It can take too long.
Yeah, no, it can. It's definitely not a short game. So Nightmare.
Well, go ahead. You're number 1.
Yeah,
Nightmare,
let's talk about. It's a terrible game. It really is. I fully admit that, and that's what makes it so good. You're experiencing a B movie. It's so awful. It's amazing. In fact, not only to that, this is how much credit I'm going to give the game Nightmare. First off, if you're looking for a good game, don't go to Nightmare. But if you're okay with playing a bad game for the silliness and absurdity of how fun it is, it's the best for Halloween. Because not only did that start my Halloween game days by playing Nightmare, that is really the game that gave me a game night. My good friend Pez, he introduced me to Nightmare because he had played it when he was a kid. I found a copy at a thrift store. I think he had a copy of something, and we played it on that Halloween, which started all of my subsequent game nights from then on out. That's what got me hooked, because what we did, what Nightmare is you're basically just trying to get 6 keys from around the board and be the first to get to the center, and then you reveal like a bunch of worst fears, and as long as you don't pull yours, it's basically a dice roll, then you win. However, throughout this entire game where you're rolling and moving and getting keys and all this stuff, you are being yelled at by a guy on a VHS tape who's one of the worst actors and is so campy, so over the top.
So guys, did you hear that VHS tape?
Yeah.
You're screwed
Yes.
if you don't have a VCR.
No,
anymore.
it's on YouTube now, so you could do
No,
it.
I know, but I'm just like, that's what 90s.
Oh, it was, I think, 80s, late 80s.
Well, 80s, 90s when you had VCRs. DVDs came out in the late 90s, so
Yeah. It wasn't. It was when I was a kid, for sure.
it's not just the past technology. It's the past.
It's the previous one from there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I like this guy would come in the middle of like as you have an hour to finish it, no matter what. Otherwise, everybody loses. But there's only one winner, unless there's zero. And throughout various times, this guy will come in with a loud thunderclap and go, "Stop!" It's so over the top, shouts at you, belittles you, calls you maggots, and just like starts talking down to you as you're talking to a tape that's being played on the TV. What we would do is we would project it onto my wall, so it would be massive, and I would take a giant subwoofer speaker, and we put it under the table, so everything shook when he came in. All the pieces would like fall over. Everybody would just jump because it was so loud and startling that you'd be playing, you'd roll your dice, all right, I'm moving 1, 2, 3. It was so thematic and so fun to do. I can't recommend it enough.
You're making it better than what it actually is.
No,
I
the
played
experiences.
the game when I was a kid, and I didn't like it.
Yeah, no, it's not a good game. I'm just saying that experiences that we've had playing it have been some of the funnest experiences we've ever had. It was amazing. The game's not that good, I admit. But that is my go-to game for Halloween now, every year.
So my go-to game for Halloween is one I mentioned earlier. It's Horrified.
Horrified, yep.
It's a quick family weight game. That's what I love about it. You can teach it to anybody really quickly, and not a lot of people are going to struggle with it. Because it's familiar mechanisms. I liken it to, think of Pandemic. You do some actions, and then you draw cards that are going to do bad stuff.
Yep.
And then it goes to the next player, and they do the exact same thing. It's very familiar. It's very easy to remember. It's gone gangbusters over everybody I've shown, to the point where like, hey, bring Horrified. Hey, bring this. Let's play this because, it's spooky time. It's Halloween. And the reason why it's my go-to Halloween game, I love the Universal Monsters. I own all the digital movies.
Yeah.
So we tend to, around Halloween, when we got this last year, would put, every time I play it, we'd put one of the Universal Monster movies on in the background, depending on which ones we're playing with. We've had Frankenstein in the background. We've had Dracula in the background. I've recently just had a creature from the Black Lagoon in the background last time I played it. So I really enjoy it, especially around this time. It's not as spooky. It's not as tension-filled as some of the other games I picked. But people have had nothing but fun playing it, and they always look forward to when Halloween's coming around, like, oh, we get to play Horrified. I'm like, we can play it at any time we want, but sure.
Right.
It's that good of a game. It's a Halloween game that I think is a great go-to Halloween game that could be played throughout the year.
Yeah, that's exactly why it wasn't on my list, is because I think it's a good enough game, and I love it so much that I would pull it out anytime. I don't think it necessarily has to be played on Halloween. It could be on anywhere.
I don't disagree with you on that aspect of it.
Yeah. Cool. Well then, so that was our top go-to games for Halloween. Hopefully you found some that you haven't heard of or that you haven't played that might sound intriguing to you. If you do, go check them out. This has been a fun list, and we hope that this gives you some ideas for this upcoming Halloween, and we hope you have a fun day, and make the best of it.
Yeah, exactly. And just for people who follow us on YouTube or the actual podcast version of this, all video re-uploads will be found on YouTube at Everyday Board Games 2020. The audio versions are found on most major podcast platforms other than Apple, I think, right now. That includes Spotify, Google, Amazon Music, Podbean, those sort of things. And what's cool about it is that I'm going to release this episode on Friday before Halloween, and the top 8 debate will actually release on Halloween.
Cool. Very cool. And so, of course, if you're watching us live, stick around. We're going to be filming the next top 8 debate episode right after this. And if you want to contact us directly with future ideas, let us know. Let us know at everydayboardgames2020 at gmail.com.
Yep. As well as you can get them contact us at EBG Podcast on Twitter. That's another way to go ahead and reach us.
And then if you ever want to watch us live, go to twitch.tv/everydayboardgames.
Alrighty, and with that being said, I've been Daniel.
And I'm Daniel.
And have a good one.
Have a good one.